most dangerous elements we have discovered so far. This world is made of elements that make compounds. These elements can be good or bad. There are 118 known elements. While we require some of them in order to survive, others are absolutely nasty. What makes an element bad? There are three wide categories that describe an element as good or bad. Number 1, its radioactivity. There's a simple rule. Highly radioactive means highly dangerous. Number 2, its toxicity. Some elements are dangerous because of their natural toxicity. The US Environmental Protection Agency defines a toxic chemical as any substance which can be considered harmful to the environment or hazardous to health if inhaled, ingested, or absorbed through the skin. Number 3, its reactivity. Some elements are dangerous due to extreme reactivity. The most reactive elements and compounds can ignite spontaneously or even explosively, and generally burn in water as well as in the air. Now that we have a pretty clear idea of what can make an element dangerous, we can really move on with the names of these elements. So, are you ready to meet the baddies? Watch this video to learn how to recognize these elements and why you need to try your hardest to steer clear of them. So let's begin with our first element. Number 1. Mercury. Well, mercury is deadly. You might wonder why you don't often find mercury in thermometers anymore. Well, there's a reason for that. While mercury is located right next to gold on the periodic table, you wear gold, but do your best to avoid mercury. Mercury is a lethal metal that's dense enough that it can be absorbed into your body directly through your unbroken skin. This liquid element has a high vapor pressure, so even if you don't touch it, you absorb it via inhalation. Your biggest risk from this element isn't from the pure metal, but from organic mercury that works its way up the food chain. Seafood is the best known source of mercury exposure, but the element is also released into the air from industries, such as paper mills. What happens when you meet up with mercury? The element damages multiple organ systems, but the neurological effects are the worst. It affects memory, muscle strength and coordination. Any exposure is too much. And much worse, a large dose can kill you. Oopsie, too dangerous. Number 2. Arsenic. Who hasn't heard the name of arsenic? A classic poison. People have been poisoning themselves and each other with arsenic since the Middle Ages. In Victorian times, it was a poisoner's obvious choice. However, people were also exposed to it as it was used in paints and wallpaper. In the modern era, arsenic is not used for murder, unless you don't mind getting caught, because it's easy to detect and you will obviously get caught. This element is still used in wood preservatives and certain pesticides, but the greatest risk is from groundwater contamination, most often resulting when wells are drilled into arsenic-rich aquifers. It's estimated that 25 million Americans and as many as 500 million people worldwide drink arsenic-contaminated water. In terms of public health risk, arsenic may well be the worst element of all. Oh, too much hate for arsenic. Let's look at what arsenic actually does to humans to get this much hate from them. It actually disrupts ATP production, the molecule your cells need for energy, and causes cancer. Low doses, which may have an increasing effect, cause nausea, bleeding, vomiting, and diarrhea. A large dose causes death. However, it's a slow and painful death that usually takes hours. God forbid. Let's move on to our third element. Number 3. Francium. Only about 1 ounce, 20 to 30 grams of francium can be found in the entire Earth's crust. The amount of the element that has been synthesized by mankind isn't even enough to weigh. All of the elements in the alkali metal group are extremely reactive. If you put pure sodium or potassium metal in water, the result will be a fire. The reactivity increases as you move down the periodic table, so cesium reacts explosively. Francium is highly reactive. Not much francium has been produced, but you don't want to touch this element without using gloves. Yes, right, it can burn your hands. The reaction between the metal and the water in your skin would make you a legend in the emergency room. Oh, and by the way, it's radioactive too. Number 4. Lead. Lead is a metal that preferentially replaces other metals in your body, such as the iron, calcium, and zinc you need to function. In high doses, lead exposure can kill you. But if you're alive and kicking, you're living with at least some of it in your body. Lead is actually one of the most dangerous elements, and we are living with it. Big risk. Lead used to be used for pretty much everything, like paint, eating utensils, toys, and water pipes, just for starters. Then, someone noticed it was highly toxic. Although it might not be the most toxic element, it is probably the most likely one you'll come across with among these baddies. There is no real safe level of exposure to the element, which is found in weights, soda, jewelry, plumbing, paint, and as a contaminant in many other products. Lead causes nervous system damage in babies and children, resulting in development delays, organ damage, and reduced intelligence. Lead doesn't do adults any favors either, affecting blood pressure, cognitive ability, and fertility. In high enough doses, lead can be really toxic. Symptoms include vomiting, staggering, weakness, seizures, coma, and death. But this is rare. It is long-term exposure that gets most people. Although still serious in adults, lead poisoning is particularly destructive in children. This is because it exploits the developing nervous system, leading to irreversible damage. In short, lead can permanently reduce your IQ, and you probably don't want that, do you? Number 5. Plutonium. Lead and mercury are two lethal heavy metals, but they aren't necessarily going to kill you from across the room. Although mercury is so volatile, so it actually might. You can think of plutonium as the radioactive big brother to the other two heavy metals. It's poisonous on its own, plus it floods its surroundings with alpha, beta, and gamma radiation. Being highly radioactive, this element is also toxic like other heavy metals. Inhalation is the most harmful route for plutonium exposure, and one estimate suggests 500 grams of plutonium dust released into the air would be sufficient to kill nearly 2 million people. 1 kilogram of pure plutonium is sufficient to make a 10 kiloton explosion. That is the same as 10,000 tons of conventional explosives. This is about half the size of the Hiroshima bomb. Like water, plutonium is one of the few substances that actually increases in density when melted from a solid into a liquid. While not nearly as toxic as polonium, plutonium is more abundant thanks to its use in nuclear reactors and weapons. Like all of its neighbors on the periodic table, if it doesn't kill you outright, you may experience radiation sickness or cancer should you be exposed to it. Number 6. Polonium. Polonium. Cute name. Seems like a younger brother, but it's a nasty element. It is a rare, radioactive element that occurs naturally. Of all the elements on the list, it's the one you're least likely to encounter in person unless you work at a nuclear facility or are a target for assassination. Polonium is used as an atomic heat source in anti-static brushes for photographic film and industrial manufacturing, and as a nasty poison. Should you happen to see polonium, you might notice something is a bit off about it, because the alpha particles emitted by polonium-210 don't have enough energy to penetrate the skin, but the element emits a lot of them. 1 gram of polonium emits as many alpha particles as 5 kilograms of radium. How dangerous it can be? This element is 250,000 times more toxic than cyanide. So, 1 gram of Po-210, if ingested or injected, could kill 10 million people. Former spy Alexander Litvinenko was poisoned with just a trace of polonium in his tea. It took 23 days for him to die with one of the most miserable deaths of all times. Polonium is not an element you want to mess around with. Number 7. Cesium. Cesium is a highly reactive metal. Cesium needs very little encouragement to explode spontaneously. In fact, just the presence of thin air is enough to make cesium burst into flames. Short-tempered indeed, like some of us. If your natural reaction would be to throw water on this while it bursts into flames, that might not be such a good idea, because contact with water makes it explode. For this reason, cesium must be stored in a vacuum and only in small quantities. Number 8. Fluorine. Fluorine gas is, of course, one of the most aggressively dangerous substances on or off Earth, but one is not likely to encounter it in everyday life. But fluoride ion is another story. It is very toxic. Sodium fluoride, the ingredient in toothpaste, is used as insect and rat poison. A gram, 1/30th of an ounce, can be lethal. So when the instructions for using fluoride toothpaste tell you not to swallow it, they mean it. Fluorine is a generally unpleasant substance. The unappealing, pale yellow gas is corrosive, highly poisonous, and will try to react with almost anything, often explosively. It is chlorine's more unstable big brother, and as we know, chlorine makes bleach and mustard gas amongst other things. Just 25 parts per million, that's 0.00025% concentration of fluorine, is potentially lethal. It acts by attacking the lungs, airways and eyes, effectively blinding and suffocating the victim. Think mustard gas, but worse, and that's fluorine. On the positive side, fluorine is great for your teeth. Quite suggestive because of its wide use in the toothpaste industry. Number 9. Beryllium. Beryllium is a chemical element with atomic number 4. Despite its pretty sounding name and the fact beryllium is made in stars, it has some rather nasty properties. The dust from beryllium is so bad for you when inhaled that they even named a disease after it: berilliosis. This incurable condition causes lesions in the lungs similar to those found in tuberculosis. The symptoms are in fact often confused with TB, and the long-term effects may result in lung cancer. Beryllium is a Category 1 carcinogen, but it is also very useful in a number of industries. So it is important for these industries to provide their workers with enough protective equipment. There are no hard and fast rules as to which elements are likely to prove the most dangerous, but as we mentioned specific properties of a few elements, it's better for you all to steer clear of these nasty elements. If you liked the video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so that you won't miss any of our videos. Bye bye! See you soon with a new video!